The Last of the 20. By Joseph N. Wdowski. The meal. Miller discovered that Julius had turned the dining room of the hotel into a family dining room. He had fitted the tables that were in the Barcelona wine bar into one large dining room table. The tables they could not use were removed to make the small room seem much larger. Miller strapped his rifle and helmet on the robot that found an empty spot in a corner of the room. Miller learned that their family name was Branch. Julius explained that his original family name was Ak, but since Ellis Island their Hungarian name was translated into English. "What is your given name?" The middle daughter asked Miller. "I don't have one." "Your parents didn't give you a first name?" The youngest daughter questioned. "My name is Tina." "I didn't have parents." Miller replied. "Your parents died?" The youngest daughter sadly asked. "No, I actually never had biological parents." Miller explained. "I was genetically engineered in one of the shelter labs. The military officers that trained us gave me the name Miller, but only Miller. None of my team was given first names." "Makes sense," said Julius. "Why is that, Dad?" The middle daughter asked her father. "When I served in the Marines, before I took this job, we always referred to each other by our family names, not our given names." "You were a Marine?" Miller asked Julius. "Once a Marine, always a Marine." Julius responded. "I was stationed in Taiwan during the South China Sea War. It is where I met their mother. My regiment was instrumental in helping the Taiwanese push the Chinese back into the sea. I was wounded at the Battle of Kaohsiung. I lost both my legs below the knees." He pulled up one of his pants legs, revealing an artificial leg. "You're a cyborg." 124 responded, as if he had a connection with Julius. "I guess in a way, I am. These modern prostheses are so good, I often forget that they are not my real legs. My injuries were severe enough that I was encouraged to retire as a sergeant first class at the age of 32. At that time, we were soundly winning the war. The Corps gave me a very generous retirement package for my service and sacrifice. Not liking doing nothing, my wife and I took this job 3 months after returning to the States and receiving my new legs. 3 months later, the Communist Chinese released the original virus. So, you know how to use that." Miller glanced at the semi-automatic rifle leaning against the wall just behind Marine Sergeant First Class Branch. Julius looked at the weapon behind him. "Yes, of course, and I taught my daughters. They are all excellent shots and can strip down any rifle or sidearm blindfolded. Very good skills to have in today's world." Miller approved. Julius glanced at Miller's rifle that was strapped on 124. "I have to admit, I have never seen a weapon like that." Miller looked at his rifle. "It was developed by the scientists in the shelter. It's called a PEPA. It fires accelerated photon energy. I could easily blast a hole through a brick wall a mutant is hiding behind." Miller gingerly, not to threaten his host, pulled out his sidearm, placing it on the table before him. "My sidearm is the same principle, but at a much lower energy output." "Less collateral damage?" Julius asked. "Yes." Miller confirmed. "A much more surgical weapon in the right hands." Miller unthreateningly picked the sidearm up off the table and reholstered it. "The rifle is for more desperate times. It is for when I need overwhelming firepower against numerous foes." "And yet with all that firepower your whole team was wiped out, except for you?" the middle daughter asked. "Our helmet sensors cannot pick up the mutants when they are in their near-death dormant sleeping phase. When we first left the shelter, we thought the world was clear of any real threats. Our first night we made camp at the northern edge of Central Park. The mutants hit us unexpectedly that first night. We killed hundreds of the mutants, but at the cost of half my men. Our control center ordered us to continue on our mission. I was ordered to lead the remains of my team to New Haven to hook up with Shelter 3. Those back at the shelter didn't understand how devastated my remaining men were, but I was raised and trained to follow orders, not to question them. Holding back the emotions that were emerging in him, he took a deep, thoughtful breath before continuing. Over the next 2 nights, we lost more of the team to relentless mutant attacks. Worse of all, those still alive mentally broke and willingly drank the waters to change over to the mutants. Then what happened? Tina asked. Purposely suppressing his real feelings, he explained in a matter-of-fact way. It wasn't long after losing my whole team that I lost contact with the control center in the shelter. I'm convinced that those of my men that did mutate led a mutant horde assault on the shelter, wiping out all the human survivors. The table went silent as they took in Miller's horrific story. It was then that the eldest daughter walked in with a large serving dish of roast venison. "Nora, would you please get the rabbit stew and bring it in?" The middle girl stood and went to the kitchen as the eldest daughter placed the deer meat in the center of the table with a silver serving fork. "Our best silverware, Anna." Julius asked his daughter, "How often do we have a guest?" She smiled at Miller. "I never had a cooked meal before." Miller stated, "Never. Will you eat?" the youngest daughter asked. "Ration protein bars." He explained to the 16-year-old girl, "I think they are good, although I never been able to compare them to anything else." Nora then entered the dining room with a pot. Miller was able to take in the aroma of the stew and found it surprisingly delightful. His stomach gave a loud rumble. The girls all laughed. "I think you're hungry," stated Tina. Nora, using a silver ladle, poured the stew into his bowl. "I hope you enjoy it." Miller looked up at Nora, who was at least 20 years old. "It smells wonderful." Miller never, before having had a formal sit-down meal, decided to follow the lead of his hosts. He wasn't really sure which of the silver eating utensils before him he should use first. After serving everyone at the table, Nora took her seat next to the youngest daughter across from Miller. Julius sat at the end of the table furthest from the kitchen. Anna sat at the end of the table nearest to the kitchen. Anna was at least 23 years old, and Miller found her extremely beautiful. Her skin was a smooth olive tone. Her nose had a western bridge from her father, and high cheekbones he assumed from her mother. All the girls had large almond-shaped eyes, a mix from both their parents. Taking the time to focus on all 3 girls, he realized they were all very attractive. Julius put out his hands to his youngest daughter and Miller. Tina took her father's hand, and with her left hand took Nora's right hand. Nora's free hand reached out to Anna, taking her right hand. Anna reached to Miller with her left hand, taking Miller's right hand. In a circle, they were all linked together. Closing their eyes and bowing their heads, Julius said grace. "God, thank you for this bounty. Thank you for Anna working so hard to make this meal for us. And thank you for our new friend, Miller. Amen. Amen." The table all responded. "Oh, and thank you for 124. Tina injected before they started eating. 124, do you want some stew?" "Thank you for asking, but I don't eat." The robot happily replied. The girls all laughed.